Hot damn, this is going to be one hell of a review. Pun intended! Oh man, I'm so fucking stoked to finally be able to review this beast. This is going to be awesome. Very few games, if any I've reviewed so far, could be called genre defining. This is definitely one of those. Any modern games in the hack and slash genre owe their origins to this game. This is the one that started it all. Let's do this! Released in 2001 on the PlayStation 2, Devil May Cry is one of those games that didn't really get a whole lot of attention back when it first came out. There might have been some mentioning of it in gaming publications, but I don't distinctly remember any commercials or much hype surrounding it. But afterwards, you want to talk about one of the must-have titles if you owned a PS2 back then? Everybody into action-adventure games played it, owned it, rented it, everything. Jesus, there is so much history I have with this game, it's ridiculous. I sure as shit owned it way back in the day, and even picked up the HD Remaster trilogy on Xbox 360, which is the version I'll be using for this review. But enough about that. Let's rock! Originally conceived as the first iteration of Resident Evil 4 back in 1999, Devil May Cry was produced by Capcom's in-house development team, Team Little Devils, which included Hideki Kamiya, and which I've explained the backstory of in my Beautiful Joe review, and was part of Capcom's Production Studio 4. Kamiya wanted a lot more action in this game, and since all Resident Evil games up to this point used fixed camera angles and positions, Kamiya did away with those in favor of a dynamic camera system. While development continued, Resident Evil creator Shinji Mikami felt the direction the team was going in didn't really fit the Resident Evil series, so he suggested they venture out and create a new IP altogether. Kamiya rewrote the entire story pretty much and called the main character Dante, an allusion to Dante's Divine Comedy, and indeed would draw many references and inspirations from that story as well. The storyline is pretty simple, even by early 2000s standards, but is interesting nonetheless. 2,000 years ago, there was a war between humans and the underworld. A demon from the underworld had a change of heart and rose against the armies of the underworld. The legendary Dark Knight Sparta. It was he who brought things into balance and kept things from tipping one way or the other. We are then introduced to a lone woman, Trish, as she locates Devil May Cry, a business that does what exactly? I'm not exactly sure. Kill demons, maybe? I don't think it's ever actually stated what Dante does normally. Anyways, she bursts into the room on a motorcycle that she got from nowhere, and we get introduced to the badass of all badasses, Dante. Half human, half demon. He's attacked by Trish using magic, then she throws the motorcycle at him, but being a badass, he just blows it off, or blows the motorcycle away. Anyways, Trish reminds Dante of his mother, and it's explained that Mundus, Emperor of the Underworld, is growing strong again and is attempting to conquer the human realm, as Sparta defeated him 20 years ago. Trish says that shit is about to go down on Malay Island, so her and Dante take off to investigate. The game primarily centers around exploration and combat, with heavy doses of the latter being needed in order to progress through many areas. Instead of levels, the game is divided into missions, at the end of which you're given a letter score depending on how well you did in the previous mission. At the beginning of each mission, you're also given a simple phrase, which, although cryptic, is a clue as to what you're supposed to do in the next mission, or what you might possibly face. The first area lets the player explore, getting used to the controls, camera angles, combat, etc. You also find orbs scattered about in the form of red, blue, and yellow. Red orbs are your currency in the game and allow Dante to power up his combat moves, learn new moves, or purchase helpful items in between missions. Blue orbs increase your life meter, yellow orbs function as continues. You'll run into your first enemies here, the marionettes, but they're fun to smash around. Also, you'll learn the game's simple but sometimes frustrating as fuck puzzles, which you really have to pay attention to, or otherwise, you'll find yourself backtracking for hours looking for a door that was right around the corner to begin with. I mean, don't get me wrong, there is a map in the game, but it's pretty much fucking useless. It usually shows you where you're supposed to go, but it doesn't tell you a damn thing whatsoever on how to get there, or what you need to pick up to get there. So you make your way through each mission, killing enemies, picking up orbs, and along the way, learning little tidbits about what's going on the island, and Mundus's overall plan. At the end of certain missions, you'll face off against a ginormous boss, like Phantom the Lava Spider or Griffin, a giant bird. You start out with two kinds of weapons, long range and physical combat. You'll pick up a few different weapons for each type along the way. You begin with Ebony and Ivory, your trusty side shooters, but also find a shotgun, grenade launcher, and a needle gun. When Dante needs to get up close and personal, he has weapons for that too. Starting with Alistor, you'll come into possession of Ifrit, fire gauntlets, and the Sword of Sparta as well. All weapons can be upgraded to deal more damage or to shoot faster in the gun category. Lastly, see those weird looking symbols underneath the health bar? That's your devil trigger. In this mode, when activated, Dante transforms into his demon form. Where his damage output is very high, he has improved resistance to damage and moves around really fast too. Unfortunately, this can only be used for a short time, and I mainly use it if I'm in danger of dying in a boss fight, or if I get swarmed by too many enemies at once. You finally make your way to the end of the game, and after a rather bizarre, on-rails shooter-type battle, you face off against Mundus. After dropping that big nasty, you find Trish, apparently dead. Making your way off the island, you're confronted by Mundus again, in one last ditch attempt to kill you. Trish shows up, yay! And you both defeat the Dark Emperor. Finding a biplane? Okay. You and Trish escape from Malay Island as everything blows up. Kinda like Contra. Yeah! It's later shown that Trish and Dante now work together, and the business has been renamed Devil Never Cry. The end.
We'll be right there. This one has the password.
Being that this is the remastered HD version of the game, it looks pretty good. If I were reviewing the original PS2 version, I would probably have to admit that the graphics really haven't stood up well over the years. And this is easily seeable even in the HD collection, as the pre-rendered scenes have not been upscaled, and are still in their original 480i resolution. Other than that, things look great. Dante has benefited from the upscaled resolution, as have most of the enemies, and bosses especially look really good in higher definition. Strangely, all the screens in between missions have also not been upscaled, which is really weird. The textures as well as the environments also appear much better in this version, as if you look at the original, textures are very muddy and smeared, and the backgrounds look very blurry. Another aspect that hasn't aged well is the camera angles, or I should say the dynamic camera. Yes, I know that the camera in this game is supposed to function as sort of a bridge between Resident Evil's fixed camera angles and more of a free-flowing camera system, but it does get frustrating sometimes. Usually the camera behaves itself, but many other times it just pisses me off. Especially during boss fights or where seeing what the hell is going on is of crucial importance. Honestly, it was annoying when playing through the game originally, especially parts where you're running and the camera suddenly switches angles and the controls switch right along with it. So you're running forward, camera switches, you accidentally run backwards, then you have to reverse your controls to go back to where the camera switch happens, usually ascending or descending stairways, stop, swap your directional controls, and continue. It also can be very annoying during the platforming sections, and while there aren't a whole lot of them, thank God, the fixed camera angle just doesn't work. It's incredibly hard to judge how far to jump, where to jump, and to tell if you're going to land correctly, when you can't move the camera around to get a better view. Yes, again, I know this was done as part of the game's cinematic presentation, but from a realistic, logical gameplay standpoint, it doesn't work. The audio side of things doesn't see such a big jump forward in quality as the graphics do, but the sound quality has been slightly improved over the original version. Voice work is nicely done, as are sound effects like explosions. In particular, Dante's two pistols still have a very memorable firing sound. They never sounded generic, even originally. Music overall fits very well into the dark, gothic environment of Malay Island. But you also have heavy rock coming into play during battles and other high adrenaline type events. Don't worry, no silly, fucking stupid guitar weapon in this game. That's not till Devil May Cry 3. One thing I should touch on is the game length. Unless you're one of those people that likes exploring every little square inch of a game, you'll be finishing this game a lot faster than you think. True, there are secret levels to be found, but other than that, if you're just playing through normally, you'll easily finish it in less than 8 hours. During my playthrough for this review, I did it in less than 4.5 hours, and that wasn't even rushing. So, yes, it is on the shorter side of things, but gameplay time can be extended, because there are a few multiple difficulties of the game that can be played through, each one being unlocked by completing said game on previous difficulty. Overall, Devil May Cry is one of the all-time classics. Ask anybody. It was responsible for creating a new genre of game, and has influenced countless others since its original release. The simple combination of wicked combat, interesting enemies, well-designed bosses, and just a fresh aesthetic make this game something at least every gamer nowadays should at least play through or give it a try. There have been numerous sequels to the first game, with Devil May Cry 2 being released 2 years later, Devil May Cry 3 Dante's Awakening in 2005, with Devil May Cry 3 being the last in the series released on the PlayStation 2. I can't really say I've given much time to Devil May Cry 4, as the series had started to veer too far from its original roots. And don't even get me started on that fucking trainwreck piece of shit garbage that DMC Devil May Cry is. I may have to do a rant video on it because I hate it so much. If I had to give my recommendation, I'd tell most people to stick with the original trilogy, even though Devil May Cry 3 is kinda meh. The truest experience is playing through the first 3 games, and luckily, with the HD collection being released on Xbox 360 and PS3, it's easily available to play nowadays. Any way you look at it, Devil May Cry came, saw, and conquered, and it's easy to see why. Thanks for watching, thanks for subscribing, go check it out.